Happy New Year to all of my law subscribed audience. What a great 2025 we had, moving into a fantastic 2026. I've got some really exciting news to share. So, after 4 years practicing as an attorney, leveraging the subscription model, and for equally as long, if not longer, talking about teaching, training, helping lawyers ditch the billable hour and use the subscription model, I have finally decided, with some nudging by some really smart people, I think, to actually take it to the next level. The best way to help the profession move away from the billable hour and to adopt subscriptions is to just help them do it at scale. And the best way to do that is via software. For everyone who's not a regular listener to this podcast, you already know all the benefits of the subscription model. But for them, the focus in our marketing and our advertising and our outreach is going to be, well, AI is eliminating your billable hours, right? Factually, like we could see that now, the proper leverage of AI. And frankly, in some of my most recent CLEs, I talk about how ethically, if we are able to reduce billable hours by leveraging AI to serve our clients, we have to. We have an ethical obligation to do that. And so the argument for like everyone who's not a regular listener is, hey, look at that. And we need to move away from the billable hour. And how are we going to do that? We're going to use Practi. So my new legal tech company that we've been in stealth mode since last year, but this year, 2026, we're coming out of stealth mode and we're called Practi. Practi.ai is where you go to sign up to leverage the subscription model for your law firm in a streamlined way. Since last year, I've been signing up all my new clients using Practi and transitioning past clients onto the Practi platform. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to use the software for my firm and be the guinea pig before shipping any new features or doing any new things that could help all of you have a subscription-based law practice. Now, I get sold on legal tech and non-legal tech all the time. And so I don't want to do the things that I don't like to experience to any of you or to other lawyers. And so that's why we want you to experience a real return on investment of the platform before we start charging. And so that's why you could sign up and create an account for free at Practi.ai and even sign up your first client subscriber for free without us charging you anything. There are payment processing fees, but we don't see any of that. But once you sign up your second client, while we're in this early access beta period, we're only going to start charging $20 a month. And we have plans for that to go up to $100 a month once we actually launch out of our beta into our version 1.0 software, because you're coming in early and we want to give you a discount for what we still think is a very usable product. Again, I'm using it in my own firm, but we are still building and we're still early stages. And while we incorporated in 2025 and we've been building, starting our MVP, starting our even just proof of concept really since the summer and really building Practi in earnest since last fall, we've come a really long way. And we have a lot more to go. And so that's why we want to, while we think the product is worth a minimum of $100 a month today, we're giving that discount because we are still early days. But even then, we're trying to keep it super reasonable because I don't want you to ditch the rest of your tech stack right away. If ever, when leveraging a tool like Practi, there's no other software solution out there that is exclusively dedicated to just helping you leverage the subscription model where clients are able to self-serve, change their own subscriptions, check out in a cart, like a true e-commerce experience, but for legal services, for your law firm to be able to offer. And so that's our exclusive focus. Now, there are some other tools that can help you leverage subscriptions. None of them are purpose-built for law firms. And those tools out there that do let you offer some subscription pricing, they also offer a lot of other things. And so if you're a longtime listener, you've attended some of my CLEs, you know how I love talking about how I really use Calendly. One of the reasons I like Calendly a lot is they're just focused on one thing, and that is scheduling and getting meetings booked on your calendar and rescheduled, right? Like that's it. That's all they're focused on. So they could build a really good product that's very reasonably priced and it integrates with everything. And so Calendly's been around for a long time. We haven't. We do have some integrations planned in the future, but for now, it's really easy to leverage this tool at Practi.ai and not have to start from the ground up and worry about integrations and other things. This is just your business model solution for the AI-powered and efficient lawyer. So there's a lot more that I could say about Practi. I'll link to a demo of the product in the show notes here and on YouTube in the description, because I want you to actually see what it's like to sign up and create an account and use the product. Now, those of you that have a Stripe account, you're already ahead of the game because you're going to be able to create an account probably in under 5 minutes. We try to keep it super simple so that it's frictionless for you to start leveraging the subscription model for your law firm. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Kerbis at Practi.ai. Practi is spelled like practice, but it's missing the CE at the end. So Kerbis, my last name, at Practi.ai. Reach out. I'd love to answer any of your questions. There's going to be a lot more content coming in the near future, and I'm building out a new newsletter and podcast called the AI Billpocalypse, and I'm going to be building that in public. So if you're interested in learning on how to launch a podcast and newsletter, I'm going to be doing that very soon, and I really hope that you subscribe to that and learn more about that. So having said all that, now I'd like to move into 2025 in review for the podcast Law Subscribed. So let's take a look. All right, so my very first episode of 2025 was just a trailer for the series I did with Lauren Lester on how to run a law firm in 2025. I know that in terms of longevity and having evergreen content, calling something in 2025 when you're out of that year might seem already out of date. So while we did focus on that because we wanted it to be very relevant to today, we also know it's a snapshot in time, especially in the world of AI. Things are changing so fast that we actually want people to know, while we think it's still really useful content, this was a product of 2025, even though a lot of it was recorded at the end of 2024. So we had a great series, and what I did is I interspersed throughout the series different interview-based episodes that all of you are used to. But you'll see I also talked to some innovative attorneys out of the New Jersey, New York, East Coast area, Damian Weinstein and Brian Klein of Weinstein and Klein, some great subscription-based employment law attorneys. Did some more work as a thought leader and influencer for Gavel this year as well. Did a special promo video for them. They're doing some really innovative and fun things. Had Dazza Greenwood on. That was a really great episode. That was just a short Law Subscribed live. A lot of the things that I did last year is I focused on recording content live for folks who wanted to see it live, and dozens of you did, but most of you will see it when I record it, when I publish it later via the Law Subscribed podcast feed or on YouTube. And I've been quoting Dazza all year. He talked about agentic AI in the context of these large language models being like fire. They're elemental. They're incredibly powerful. But when you're able to take agentic, when you look at AI agents, it's like taking a bonfire or a flame and turning it into a blowtorch. A blowtorch is built for a very specific purpose, for welding. Could you use a bonfire to weld, even though they're both inherently the same element? No, you can't. And so a big part of my teaching and training on leveraging AI actually stems from that conversation with Dazza, explaining that in the same way you wouldn't use a bonfire to weld, you would use a blowtorch. We shouldn't be using consumer grade, LLMs directly as legal specific tools, right? So that's a big part of what I've been teaching, and it really comes from that conversation I had with Dazza. Talked to Bob Glaves, the executive director of the Chicago Bar Foundation. This was a fantastic episode as well. I'm probably going to say that about every single interview because I wouldn't publish it if they weren't fantastic, right? And Bob and I talked about the access to justice angle of the billable hour and how it's preventing lawyers from serving a massive market. And my perspective on that is also there's this latent legal market opportunity that we're also able to serve these people who have gone long unserved by lawyers. And we could charge for that. We could still make money. I mean, we can't charge an unknown, unlimited potential cost or price to them. But if they have pricing certainty, these people could really be helped. And so we talked about that. Aisha Massengill was another great interview. She's doing a lot of innovative things, coming from that in-house perspective, moving to the fractional GC role, really doing a lot of great things there. Also spoke to just a fantastic legal tech journalist, Nikki Black. We talked all things about how AI is going to impact the end of the billable hour. She has her own perspectives on that. And look, we don't align on everything, but that I think makes for a more interesting conversation. And as far as my YouTube videos are concerned, other than short episodes, this is my most popular long form YouTube video ever. for the podcast Law Subscribed. So yeah, here, just looking at that YouTube video, not including the trailer, not including this just very short special announcement because it's easier to watch. I don't really count that. My interview with Nikki has over 1,400 views on YouTube, and I do nothing to actually promote my podcast on YouTube. I just publish it there. So I continue to do more and more of the how to run a law firm in 2025, and I will return to that. For those who watch every episode, I already did a how to run a law firm in 2025 in review with Lauren Lester on the podcast, and so I did more of a deep dive on that there, but I'll still go through that in a minute here. I spoke to Jeff and Brooke Holman. They're doing intellectual property plus fractional GC work on subscription. They're still tracking time. I was trying to get them away from that, but it's mostly an internal time tracking feature, not externally to clients. So I still think moving way in the right direction, really doing some great stuff there. And what was really nice about, look, I have tons of guests on the pod. I don't expect anything. Just them showing up is nice. But Jeff and Brooke have a nice thing going. They send a commemorative coin that's really nice, really fancy. And it's as a thank you for having them on the podcast. And it's very cool. I just gave it to my daughter and she loves it. And so, it's like a very fancy, cool looking coin. So that was neat to see that. Jonathan Mast of Whitebeard Strategies. This is another great one. So I like to have people on the podcast who are not in the legal industry, who are not lawyers. Jonathan is this AI expert. He is a really great teacher. And while I don't consume all of his content because it's not all relevant or, to the extent you could extrapolate from it to the legal profession and how to leverage AI, still some really useful information and some great content on LinkedIn. So highly recommend you follow Jonathan on LinkedIn at a minimum if you're not already. He's putting out some great stuff about AI, stuff that you don't hear from these AI gurus. Jonathan is an expert, and the stuff he publishes on LinkedIn about it, I think, is actually very accurate, very relevant. I had Ron Baker back on the podcast, and we talked about why timesheets don't equal cost. Basically, how cost accounting is not the right way to think about what your costs are to run a business. So one of the things I've heard from attorneys is well, how do I know what my costs are? How do I know what to pay my people if we're not tracking time? Well, every other industry does it, right? Try to price a cup of coffee. It's way more complicated than pricing legal services, right? You're talking about international trade, right? An actual physical product in the real world. But Ron really goes into really, really deeply about why it doesn't matter how long the thing takes and what your time value is during that time. No, your costs are something very different. And he explains how they're all really just arbitrary. And it's sort of mind-blowing. So yeah, that's episode 130 if you want to check out Ron's explanation there. I had back for the second, maybe even third year in a row, I'm starting to lose track, Michael DJ Eisenberg of the Tech Savvy Lawyer page, and we just recapped ABA Tech Show. I'll be speaking again at ABA Tech Show in 2026, so come out to Chicago if you can to see that. That's going to be great. I'm talking about all things Gemini and Notebook LM and Google Workspace, and so that's going to be fun. Just go to techshow.com and you could register for that. And hack, if you didn't know this already, now I think you should come and see my talk and some of the other great talks there. But if you just want to go to ABA Tech Show, it's actually free. You could get an Expo floor pass for free, and you just have to pay for room and board, and you could come and you could still meet a lot of the people, go to some of the events. And so if you didn't need the CLE or you weren't interested in some of the talks, you could still go meet the speakers and still go experience the event, and it doesn't cost you anything. I had on somebody who I met in person, actually, Claudia Braun, and we talked about your mindset and your lifestyle and the lawyer, the nature of being a private practitioner can be really stressful. And so we just talked about that broadly. And of course, I brought it back to how the billable hour doesn't really comport with having a healthy mindset and a healthy lifestyle. So that's one that's a little bit out of the ordinary, but I think is still really useful, especially to those of you who come across this and you haven't yet ditched the billable hour. This is going to help sort of teach you why there are other benefits other than the business of law being better as to why you should ditch the billable hour and break free from that. Technically, it's a bonus episode. It's not actually part of how to run a law firm in 2025. Lauren, how she could leverage the subscription model in an estate planning, probate, and tax law practice. And I think now even she's not even doing much of the tax law stuff anyway, is what she said in the recap episode that we had for how to run a law firm. And she was actually one of the first people I told about Practi before we were even out there publicly. So that was fun to get her perspective on that. This is probably my most popular LinkedIn Live that I did, was the role of private courts and AI judges in dispute resolution with the founders of Fortuna Insights, and their product is called Arbitrus.ai. Really popular episode on LinkedIn Live, pretty popular on the podcast and YouTube, but this one really blew up on LinkedIn. A lot of lawyers worried about what's going to happen with the future of dispute resolution, and these two really sharp young guys came on the pod to talk about it. Probably we'll have them back soon. Connor of Marveri, we talked about how what he's building for due diligence in the M&A space, more so even for in-house teams or for M&A attorneys than any other industry. Really nice to see a niche product built in AI. But one of the things that his tool can do, it could take all these unstructured data sets of documents and properly name and categorize them. And I still think that's a fantastic AI solution that I would pay for separately if somebody was willing to sell that. So I haven't seen Connor say anything about that, but I did see they raised a bunch of money. So congratulations, Connor, on that. I had Ashley Sang on the podcast as well. She came up with this great title, Creative Marketing Under Constraints. Ashley is a values aligned like marketing coach and expert. I actually hired her after having her on to help me with some of my marketing and copy and think about certain things there. So was really happy with Ashley and have her on the show, and hopefully she'll be back on again in the near future. As typical, I publish my CLEs when I'm able to record them. So I did this CLE, and I can't obviously give you CLE credit. I'm not independently accredited. This is a podcast, but I still like to share that really useful information. My perspective on it is I'd rather just publish this really useful content information for free to help drive change in the industry, even if you can't get CLE for it, right? If you can get CLE for it, that's an extra bonus, but high quality content is high quality content. To be a little tautological for the audience here. So this is a good one. I still share this with people. It's already out of date, right? I think this was from like the summer of 2025, and my tech stack is largely the same, but different, right? I didn't have Gamma on there. I didn't have Comet browser on there. And so things have changed since then, but still a really great episode because I give, well, not financial advice, I give pricing information and how to make good and intelligent buying decisions as a small law firm owner. And so even though the technology itself might be a little bit different now than it was back then, all of the strategic decision making that I made around how to upgrade, when to upgrade, software and hardware, still super, super relevant. That's episode 138. I had Tyson Mutrix on the podcast, and we talked about Max LawCon. At least that was at least that's what we intended to talk about. We ended up just talking about being a law firm owner, having like a podcast as well, and technology. We talked about domains, talked about all stuff. If you just want to see like two law firm owners who are also content creators just nerd out about that stuff, then episode 139 is for you. I had Mark Stiving back of Impact Pricing. He published a new book called Instant Profits, a really great read. And now that I've started a software company, I'm definitely thinking about what's in that book a little bit more. It's a little bit more relevant to the other companies outside the legal industry, and I've gifted that book to some clients. But I think there are some good takeaways, some positive takeaways if you're thinking about how to price your legal services at fixed rate and subscription rates rather than billable hour rates. So really great episode. And Mark is always just a wealth of knowledge. In fact, his episode 56 of the podcast is still the most popular episode, right? So Mark Stiving's episodes 56 and 140, can't recommend them enough. Mark's podcast, Impact Pricing, is a never miss for me. I listen to every single episode. It's really good stuff. This year, I also traveled to California to give a talk on emerging tech trends in the workplace. This is where it was my first time doing the analogy of the contractor who uses a power drill to saw a 2x4, being like how if lawyers are trying to use ChatGPT to do legal research, right? No, that's not the purpose for which that tool was built, and you're not going to do a very good job if you do that, right? So that was my first time exploring that, but that was a really great talk. Had Mike Payne of Boss Advisors on. Mike was an innovator in Arizona in the alternative business structure space, both a CPA and an attorney, and combining those businesses, he's doing some really innovative things out there. Definitely worth a listen. I had Ray Allen of Contracts Counsel on. Well, I'm not really getting any clients through Contracts Counsel anymore. Sort of thus is the nature of having a subscription-based law firm, is retention matters more than acquisition. But Ray is doing some really innovative things and trying to get law firms more clients. And that, talk about getting ROI before you have to pay anything. Like, you're getting clients and you're doing the work and you're getting paid before Contracts Counsel gets paid. So definitely, I think some subliminal inspiration behind how Contracts Counsel makes money and why I really wanted to let users of Practi get a return on investment before we start charging them. Published my talk with Joshua Lennon from ABA Tech Show as well. And what's fascinating about this conversation is this is where Joshua Lennon drops a big number, that 75% of law firm billable hours will be automated by AI. Well, I mean, talk about a mic drop bombshell moment that is still not sinking into the profession. And that was given, back early in the year. And I think definitely was one of those moments that helped push me towards, I have to start something beyond just the podcast to help lawyers ditch the billable hour. That number is astonishing. I had Nicole Laughlin on the podcast. And while she's dabbling and thinking about leveraging the subscription model more, she is really all about that, having a good lifestyle business as a law firm owner where you don't have to track time. Worth a listen for sure. Satish Anori came on the podcast. Really great interview. His perspective, again, we focused on the end of the billable hour as it relates to increasing access to justice and how we could leverage AI to better serve the needs of those long unserved by the legal profession. This was a fun attempt at in-person events for the law subscribed audience. And while there was great interest, not enough people registered for this, unfortunately. So this isn't really happening anymore. If you are interested in like in-person events, let me know. The focus on this platform is on dinner events during the week. And since most of us are parents and running businesses, weeknights don't really work for us, as that turns out. They don't really work for me either, but I really like the founder of this company. And so I thought I would try to leverage it for my audience, but I told her like brunch on a weekend would probably work better, or like lunch in the middle of the day would work better for my audience. And so they might build that product. And if they do, maybe we'll come back to it. But for now, the dinner events unfortunately didn't work. And the irony being, it's my most watched episode on YouTube. So something I need to think about for 2026 is just doing shorter episodes and just maybe clips of long episodes on YouTube. So I gave an abbreviated talk on AI and alternative fee arrangements for the American Bar Association. And if you just have 30 minutes to listen to this idea, or you think somebody that might be persuaded but isn't willing to give more than 30 minutes of their time to listen to how AI is changing the game and how to leverage alternative fees. This was before I think I might have been building Practi at the time, but we weren't live yet. We soft launched in the fall of 2025. But it was definitely on my mind, and I wish I could have talked about Practi at this. But at the end of the day, somebody has 30 minutes to be inspired to ditch the billable hour and learn how to best leverage AI. Episode 147 is the episode to share. Had another legal tech founder of Second Chair on. Austin and I have actually stayed in touch. I think they're doing some really cool things. He's coming back on the pod very soon for LinkedIn Live. Let's see here. So January 13th, he's coming back on the podcast on Law Subscribed Live to talk about something they're building at Second Chair that I think is really cool. It's essentially, and I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth, this is just my perspective on it. It's kind of like Notebook LM, but purpose-built for law firms. And I really think that's a cool product. And again, I'm an abundance mindset attorney and business owner. I don't think there's going to be one AI tool to rule them all. I will be subscribed to multiple AI tools. And as they build out this product, I think I'm going to be looking very closely at what it is. I don't know. I don't think they're using the Second Chair brand. I think they're using their brand of David AI or what exactly they're calling it. But anyway, tune in to that next episode with Austin and figure out what they're calling this new product. But it looks really, really cool. And I'm very excited for what it means for legal service providers. In a rare instance, I republished a talk I did where I was being interviewed by Sean Hardeen for his value-based pricing. He let me record it and he let me republish it. He's got a good group of attorneys that are trying to ditch the billable hour for value-based pricing. And of course, subscription's a big part of that. And so he had me there to talk to his community and share this with his community. And he said I could go ahead and share it with mine. So if you cared to learn more about like me being interviewed, I do have all those talks at MatthewKurbis.com. That's my speaker portfolio website. But also from time to time, I think it makes sense if I have that recording to publish it for you guys to listen to as well. That's episode 149. Another really influential person in my thought process around networking and business development on the podcast, Nancy Fox. Nancy puts out some great content out there. I know she like intentionally slowed down for the end of the year, but she publishes a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I frankly prefer her long form newsletter. That's just an email newsletter, and highly recommend you check out some of Nancy's stuff. She really helps me think about the way I do business development as a law firm owner. So episode 151, that's a full recap of how to run a law firm in 2025 with my co-host of that, Lauren Lester. So definitely check that out if you want to know about how that went. Had Shannon Vialba of Heartsong Legal on the podcast. Really interesting take on alternative fee-based legal services, but also just an alternative approach to delivering legal services. She brings her whole self and her whole holistic approach to helping clients, not just with legal services, but like with chakras and energy and other things. And so it is a little woo-woo, but I think it's really interesting to see how a lawyer does things differently, not just in how she delivers legal services in terms of her pricing model, but also how she brings more than just, I'm going to help you answer your legal questions. I'm going to help you as a whole person. And I like to think that what I do for my clients is I don't just advise about law, but I advise at the intersection of law, technology, and business. And so this is her version of that. And it's really interesting. That's episode 152. And for those of you who are just listening to this episode, I'm sharing my screen here and I'm scrolling through at lawsubscribe.com in reverse chronological order. I'm scrolling up so we could see all the episodes. So we're almost done with 2025. Episode 153 was a recording of my presentation I gave live at Legal Geek. A fun little Easter egg here for those of you paying attention is I was already thinking about building Practi at the time that I gave this presentation in June of 2025. And so I have an example of how to leverage VO. At that time it was VO3. Now we're on VO 3.1. But it was how to use VO to create advertising, and I made up a quote unquote fictional legal tech company called Practi, and how I created this great 5-second advertisement that could run in like YouTube shorts or YouTube ads. So you might actually see that advertisement in the near future. But it's just I prompted a woman is walking away from the camera in a city, turns around at the camera, looks at it and says, "Is your attorney using Practi? They should be." Because we're not just going to try to get lawyers to use Practi by talking to lawyers about it and sharing with lawyers about it, but we're actually planning to advertise to clients of law firms so that when they go to their law firm, they will demand transparent pricing. And if the lawyer can't give it to them, we're going to tell them that they should tell their lawyer to use Practi. I was partially inspired by the pharmaceutical industry and how they advertise to patients to ask their doctors about a particular drug. Well, we're going to tell potential clients of law firms to ask their law firms about Practi and if they're using Practi. And so we're not just going to be advertising to lawyers, but we want to drive clients to the law firms that are using the platform as well. So really holistically, we're trying to make Practi good, not just for the law firms, but for the greater legal industry and the people and the clients who they serve. Jonathan Dessler came on the podcast. He and I have kept in touch. And he's a personal injury attorney. And who said a personal injury attorney and a former insurance defense attorney can't get along? But we do. And again, we don't really agree on everything on like a timing level or exactly certain ways that he uses AI differently from I use it. But we agree big picture on things with AI and what's going to change for the profession. So really great conversation if you wanted to see me talk to somebody who also is very deep in the AI and technology space. But we came to it from very different perspectives. We still have very different perspectives, even if we agree on long-term where everything is going. So here I have this podcast trading on here. This is just a placeholder because I will be doing this, launching a podcast for the AI Bill Apocalypse, and I'll be posting that there. So that's just a placeholder so I could have that URL. I had Adam on the podcast. We talked. This was live at MaxLawCon, where we talked about we just sort of jammed about like how can he use the subscription model for criminal law. And so that's a fun, just short live interview. Highly recommend. And then for my talk with Brian Potts at Legal Geek, I was only, because of the style, it was like a silent DJ setup. I wasn't able to mic his mic or mic him like I usually try to do for these joint presentations. So unfortunately, I don't have Brian's half of the conversation. So this is a shorter episode. So good if you like those. But also, you're only going to get my half. Still really interesting, a little bit disjointed at a few parts, but still I think really relevant and useful to hear, which is why I wanted to share it with all of you. And then finally, to cap off the end of the year, my very last episode for 2025 was actually my talk at MaxLawCon. So one of the benefits of speaking at MaxLawCon is I actually recorded the talk for you. And so rather than just the audio version, which is usually what I'm able to publish from my live CLEs or live talks, I'm actually able to publish the video. So highly recommend if you actually want to see me up on a stage talking and presenting my most recent and relevant content. This was only back in October. So it was only a few months ago if you're listening to this near the time of publication. Really loved that format, and I had to keep it short. We had to keep it to 25 minutes. And so by doing that, I focused on the highest, most important, high-value information for you. This is another one that would make a great share. So for those of you who want to encourage other lawyers, ditch the billable hour, use the subscription model, hopefully sign up for Practi at practi.ai, link in the show notes. Episode 157 is a phenomenal one to share. And so, with that, I do have, if you go to howtorunalawfirm.com, that will redirect to this URL, lawsubscribe.com/howtorunalawfirm. And that has all the episodes of How to Run a Law Firm. So, we get a lot of questions about, how do you do it? We want to do it too. Well, this is one of those places to go to do that. My only addendum to this is when you're ready to start charging on subscription, even if you don't have the bandwidth or resources to spin up a website, at Practi, the way that we help law firms is you get a URL. So like my Practi URL is practi.ai/subscription attorney. And right now that's hyperlinked on my website. So when clients go to subscriptionattorney.com and they click up subscribe, it will go to that URL. And in the near future here, we're piloting a button that you could embed a button on your website, and it will like open up a window without leaving your firm website, where the clients can subscribe right there without even leaving your law firm website. But for those of you who are like ditching big law or leaving in-house to start your own practice and you want to learn how to run a law firm, definitely go to howtorunalawfirm.com. But then also when you create your account on Practi, you get that free URL, practi.ai/law firm name or your brand. And you could just use that as a stopgap before you build out a more typical law firm website. So again, we really want to make it super easy for lawyers to ditch the billable hour. And howtorunalawfirm.com is one of the ways I've done that before Practi, and now Practi.ai is a way I'm helping to do that this year. Another thing that you may not have known is if a podcast is too much to keep up with, I do publish monthly on LinkedIn a newsletter called Law Subscribed Monthly Digest. And all that is it's the last month in Law Subscribed and things that I've done. So like if I've spoken at something and there's a link to that, or if I have an upcoming speaking engagement, I will also publish that there. But the focus on it is on what's happened in the last month on Law Subscribed, because and I really try to publish my episode titles to be super simple, right? Like employment law plus subscription. So, I'm an employment lawyer. I'm going to go listen to that episode, right? So if you want to, or you don't have the time or bandwidth to keep up with everything on Law Subscribed, highly recommend you subscribe. I started it. I actually started it, I believe, in November of 2024 with no subscribers. And in a year, a little over a year, I got over 1,100 subscribers. So it's growing. I think it's really popular. It's great. And also I'll shout out, still a sponsor, Paxton, which is my legal AI tool of choice, my main driver. Legal AI tool of choice. They sponsor the newsletter, they sponsor the podcast. Of course, thank you to Paxton for continuing to support the show. And I like to say, look, I'm a monthly subscriber to Paxton, right? And so I'm still paying. They're sponsoring this, but I'm happily a paying user and daily driver for legal AI of Paxton.ai. So love what they're doing over there at Paxton, and they just talk about shipping new features, right? They're always launching new things. Really love where they're going with their product. Have to have them back on the show soon. And then we'll wrap with with Spotify Wrapped. And so I think this stuff is really interesting. And so let's check out what Spotify has told me about this year. All right, here we go. So let's see. My audience on Spotify increased by 91% in 2025 from last year. A lot more Spotify listeners, that's for sure. That's fun. But overall, my audience increased 705%. That's crazy, right? Law subscribed. Here we go. The revolution is finally kicking off, right? All right. Followers increased by 53%. That's nice. Those are dedicated Spotify listeners. And overall listening increased on Spotify by 56%. That's fun. But one episode rose above the rest, and it was law firm finances from the How to Run a Law Firm series. How about that? How we want to know about the money. What's it cost to start a law firm? Okay, so maybe I need to do more content around that. Guess what? It's part of the reason we launched Practi, to help it make sense financially and it not cost a lot to get legaltech to have a sustainable business model for your law firm, right? Wow, played 92% more than the average episode. That's crazy that people are really interested in finances. Oh, yeah. So one of the things I do on Spotify, and I'm going to be showing how I do this soon, is I actually go in. You have to manually do this if you don't publish through Spotify. And I publish through Substack, and I upload videos. So you don't just you could watch. You don't just have to listen on Spotify. And actually, some of these stats are pretty interesting. My show was in the top 15% of videos on Spotify. My little tiny niche law subscribed podcast, because I'm leveraging the video feature. I don't think this means like I have millions of people viewing it. I just think it means like I'm leveraging video on Spotify and not a lot of other people are. But to be in the top 15% of video on Spotify is crazy. So if you're watching me on video on Spotify, thanks for helping me achieve that. Really just a vanity metric. And my videos were watched almost 1.5 times more in 2025 than 2024. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much for that. Wow. So I have some local podcasts, and it's all only the United States of people who listen, but 25 countries. Now I know a handful of them because some people reach out from other countries, but 25 is wild. That's a huge number. New Zealand, Sweden, Poland, Australia, and of course the US, where I'm based. So, English speaking, where English is a dominant language, is primarily my listenership. I suppose no surprise there. But very cool that there's even 20 more countries that listen in. So for 65 of you out there, I am a top 10 show on Spotify. Again, that's wild. Thanks for that. Thank you. A top 5 show for 35 of you. Wow. And for 8 of you on Spotify, you're probably watching this video on Spotify right now. I'm your number 1 show. Thank you very much. Wow, so 35% of you binged more than one episode at a time. And so for hour-long shows, that's awesome. Really appreciate that. 15% of you are listening in the first day. That's just good data for me to know. And by the way, Spotify represents like 5 to 10% of my audience. So this is even like a sample size of a sample size, but still really interesting. I don't get this data from Apple Podcasts, where most of my listeners are. Oh yeah, this is interesting. So my listeners are Swifties. They like Drake and Bad Bunny, Forrest Frank, and Morgan Wallen. So I don't know 4 and 5. Maybe I should listen to them. I might like them. Oh yeah, these are good. So The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F is the number 1 book for my listeners, or audiobook. Harriet Tubman live in concert, Max in the Land of Lies, Winning Ugly, and Blind Sights. Interesting audiobooks. Oh yeah, here we go. So the other podcasts, the top shows for most of my listeners on Spotify: Unsubscribe Podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. Well, like what does that even mean? Like, he's the most popular podcast ever. He's probably on everyone's list for this. Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard, The Megyn Kelly Show. Ooh, interesting. And the Let's Read Podcast. Don't know that one. Interesting. These shows are also probably way more popular than mine, and so that's why they're showing up on this list. Okay, so how about this? All right, I'm a 2025 rising star. So my show's growth outpaced 79% of other shows. So I'm in the top 21% of growing shows for 2025. Very cool. Talk about an idea whose time has come, right? 2025 was the year of AI, and people realizing the writing is on the wall for the Billable Hour. So having a podcast that's been running for 4 years about that topic, hey, 2025 was the year, right? Wow. And for those of you who listen, you listen for longer to my podcast than 88% of other shows. Really cool. And I received more. I'm in the top 24% of shows that are shared. So again, really appreciate it. My last episode of 2025, episode 157, is one I'm going to highly recommend you share with folks. So please go ahead and give that one a share. Thank you. And that's it. All right. So we're wrapping Spotify wrap for Lost Subscribe. So we'll wrap this too. Again, just thank you so much for a great 2025. Looking forward to 2026. And this is the year I really want to do more listener interviews. So if you're listening and you want to be interviewed and come in the show, let me know. I have some scheduled content. I've actually already got content produced through the end of March, but I could always shuffle things around and I might start releasing more content. I might release stuff twice a week. Like Steve Fretzon's Be That Lawyer podcast releases twice a week. Some other shows release twice a week. If I do that, I'm going to try to keep the shows shorter. So keep it closer to that 30-minute mark. So you're still getting an hour worth of content, but twice throughout the week. And then if you have any questions, write in. I might just do some quick episodes. I get a lot of listener questions like on LinkedIn or email, and just from the CLEs that I do. Hey, what I'm trying to do subscription this way, or what do I do if this happens? And so I might just do short, bite-sized episodes, 2 to 5 minutes, where I'm just reading off the question and giving the answers. And I'm going to start with my backlog of questions I've been answering for years. And then if you have questions, reach out. LinkedIn's a great way to reach out to me. Again, Kurbis@practi.ai is going to be a dominant email address that I'm using as we exit stealth mode in 2026. That Practi email is a great way to get in touch. And I'll probably come up with a Google form or something in show notes. So that will be a way to submit, listener questions, audience questions. And if you want to come live and ask it on video with me, that would be great. But text-based is fine too, and we'll just create bite-sized episodes for that. Any other ideas that you have for 2026, let me know. Very open to feedback. Again, Practi.ai is the website for the new company. If you want to use subscriptions, making it super easy, super affordable for you to be able to do that. Start getting that recurring revenue for your law firm. And with that, this has been Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed. See you more in 2026.